Have you ever wondered why the woman in white appears in so many horror stories around the world? From lonely highways in America to ancient villages in Mexico and Japan, people have told terrifying tales about a ghost dressed in white for hundreds of years. But did Supernatural create its own version? Or is there something much older hiding behind the show's first monster? Today, we're going beyond the screen to uncover the real story, the dark mythology, and the chilling truth behind one of the most famous ghosts in horror history. Let's begin. When Supernatural premiered in 2005, viewers expected another paranormal television series. Instead, they got something different. The show's creators mixed classic American urban legends with folklore, mythology, religion, and horror, creating a world where almost every monster had roots in real stories passed down through generations. The very first ghost Sam and Dean Winchester encounter is the woman in white, a spirit whose tragic past turned her into a deadly supernatural force. But while the television version is fictional, the legend behind her is much older, darker, and far more widespread than many people realize. Before we explore the real mythology, let's briefly look at how the series introduces this mysterious figure. The pilot episode introduces us to two brothers, Sam and Dean Winchester, whose lives have been shaped by the supernatural since childhood. While investigating a series of mysterious deaths along a lonely stretch of highway, they discover that the victims all encountered the same ghostly woman shortly before they died. At first, the spirit appears to be another restless ghost. But as the investigation continues, the brothers uncover a tragic story of betrayal, violence, and overwhelming grief. The deeper they dig, the more they realize that this ghost follows a pattern. She targets people connected to the pain she experienced during her life. Rather than presenting her as a simple evil spirit, the episode shows a tragic figure trapped by her own anger and regret. This emotional approach became one of the defining elements of Supernatural. Many of the show's monsters are not evil simply for the sake of being evil. They are often victims of terrible circumstances. The woman in white is the first example of this idea, setting the tone for many unforgettable stories that would follow throughout the series. But where did this legend actually come from? To answer that question, we need to go back hundreds of years. Long before horror movies, television, or even modern cities, people across the world told stories about a mysterious woman dressed in white. What's remarkable is that these legends appeared in different cultures, often without any connection to one another. Despite the distance between them, the stories share striking similarities. The ghost is usually the spirit of a woman who suffered a terrible tragedy during her life. She often appears near rivers, lakes, forests, lonely roads, bridges, or abandoned places. Witnesses describe her as beautiful from a distance, but something feels deeply wrong. As people get closer, her appearance may suddenly become unnatural or terrifying. One of the most famous versions comes from Mexico and Latin America. She is known as La Llorona, which means the weeping woman. According to the most common version of the legend, La Llorona was a woman named Maria. After being abandoned by the man she loved, she was overwhelmed by grief and rage. In a moment of despair, she drowned her own children in a river. Realizing what she had done, she was consumed by guilt and eventually died herself. Since then, her restless spirit is said to wander near rivers at night, crying out as she searches endlessly for her lost children. Many people claim that hearing her cries means danger is close. Some stories say she kidnaps wandering children. Others claim she attacks anyone who crosses her path after dark. Whether people believe these stories or not, La Llorona has become one of the most famous ghost legends in the Americas. Parents have told the tale for generations, using it as both a warning and a tragic story about loss, grief, and the consequences of desperate choices. But Mexico is not the only place where this mysterious figure appears. In Japan, legends tell of yurei, restless spirits of people who died with powerful emotions such as anger, sorrow, or betrayal. They are often described wearing white burial clothing, with long black hair and a pale appearance. Like the woman in white, they remain trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead. Across Europe, similar stories have existed for centuries. Castles, forests, and old roads are said to be haunted by women dressed in white, usually connected to betrayal, murder, or broken promises. Although each culture tells the story differently, the message remains surprisingly similar. The woman in white is not simply a monster. She is a symbol of grief, guilt, revenge, and unresolved pain, a reminder that some stories never truly end. One of the reasons Supernatural became so popular is that it rarely copied myths exactly as they were told. Instead, the writers borrowed the heart of each legend and reshaped it into a story that fit the world of the Winchester brothers. The woman in white is a perfect example. In traditional folklore, there isn't just one woman in white. Different countries have their own versions, each with a unique history and different motivations. Some legends focus on mourning, others on revenge, while some portray her as a warning to travelers or children. The series combines several of these traditions into a single character. Rather than presenting a famous legend exactly as it exists, Supernatural creates a ghost whose tragic past explains why she became dangerous. Her story reflects common themes found in folklore: betrayal, guilt, broken families, and the inability to let go of overwhelming pain. This approach makes the ghost feel more human than many horror villains. She isn't frightening simply because she is supernatural. She is frightening because her suffering has twisted her into something destructive. The writers also adapted the legend to fit modern America. Instead of an ancient village or a forgotten riverbank, the ghost appears along lonely highways, places that already carry a sense of isolation and fear. It transforms an ordinary nighttime drive into something deeply unsettling. This became one of the show's greatest strengths. It took old myths and asked a simple question: what if these legends still existed today? That idea helped Supernatural build a world where folklore didn't belong only in history books. It could be hiding just beyond the headlights on a dark road. The pilot episode of Supernatural had one very important job. It wasn't just introducing Sam and Dean Winchester. It also had to convince viewers that this world felt believable, a place where ancient legends could exist alongside modern America. Choosing the woman in white as the first monster was a smart, creative decision. Unlike creatures tied to one specific culture, the woman in white appears in folklore across many parts of the world. That made the episode feel familiar to a wide audience, even if viewers had never heard a specific version of the legend before. The episode was filmed in and around Vancouver, Canada, a location that would become home to Supernatural for many years. The forests, quiet roads, and frequent rain helped create the dark atmosphere that became one of the show's trademarks. Another memorable element was the black 1967 Chevrolet Impala. Originally, the production considered several different classic cars. The Impala was ultimately chosen because it looked powerful on camera and had enough space to realistically carry weapons, equipment, and two hunters traveling across the country. That car eventually became much more than transportation. It grew into one of the most recognizable symbols of the entire series. The pilot also established a storytelling formula that fans would come to love: an investigation inspired by folklore, clues gathered through research, a confrontation with a supernatural threat, and an emotional story hidden beneath the horror. Although later seasons expanded into angels, demons, and cosmic conflicts, the heart of Supernatural began with simple ghost stories rooted in old legends, and the woman in white was the very first step on that journey. So, how accurate is Supernatural's version of the woman in white? When it comes to folklore, The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. The series does not retell one specific legend. Instead, it blends ideas found in different traditions and reshapes them into a story that fits its own universe. The emotional core, however, feels authentic. Across many cultures, stories about the woman in white are not just ghost stories. They are tales of grief, betrayal, guilt, loss, and the lasting consequences of human choices. In that sense, Supernatural captures the spirit of the legend remarkably well. The details may be fictional, but the themes are timeless. For that reason, I'd give this adaptation an 8.5 out of 10 for mythological accuracy. It isn't a documentary, and it never tries to be. Instead, it respectfully borrows from folklore and transforms ancient myths into compelling modern horror. And perhaps that's why the show's first episode remains so memorable, even after all these years. The woman in white wasn't simply the first ghost Sam and Dean ever faced. She was the first reminder that every legend begins somewhere. And sometimes, the truth behind the myth is even more terrifying than the story itself. If you enjoyed exploring the real history behind this legendary ghost, make sure to subscribe to Beyond the Screen. In the next episode, we'll uncover another monster from Supernatural, compare it with the original folklore, and discover what Hollywood changed and why. Until then, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, some legends never truly die.